When you first look at this, you won't know what you're looking at, but when I explain it to you, you're going to say, I never knew that existed. They publish for every industry that is in your community a term we created 20 years ago called industry rent to revenue ratio. That is a Lipsey company term. You won't see it anywhere else. Do not confuse it with internal rate of return because they're completely different concepts. And so what they do is, for law firms in whatever town this was in, and a law firm is the 541110, regardless of their ownership vehicle. Doesn't matter if they're C, S, they're all lawyers, right? Their I-RRR is 5.69. That means on average, law firms in this community pay 5.69% of their revenue to rent. That's the rent to revenue ratio. And that was through the second quarter of 2024. And the reason this data is coming from tax returns. What they do is they get all the tax returns for a community. They have 1,000 law firms. They add up for 1,000 law firms the total revenue for 1,000 law firms, and then they go to the line item called rent, and they add that up, and they do the division of the total rent paid for 1,000 law firms by the 1,000 law firms revenue, and it turns out to be 5.69% on average of all the law firms. Some are in the nicest buildings downtown, some are in shopping centers, but it's the average, and we've got to kind of customize that number, which I'll show you how we do that in a few minutes, but that starts off as the base I-RRR. Some of those leases are net, some are gross, some modified, but that is the average of the rent that's paid by law firms and it's got to be in an incorporated area, like Lakeland. So far, so good? Who does tenant rep in here and has done it for a while? You do?
Office tenant rep.
Where?
Phoenix.
But I mean, where in Phoenix? All over?
Yeah,
all right. I got to tell you, I stay in the Biltmore area 3 times a year. When I came to see you guys, I stayed at the newly renovated Embassy Suites that's right next to that huge health club next to the Biltmore Shopping Center, okay? Every one of my clients are within 2 blocks. I mean, it's like, there's no greater density of commercial brokers on the planet than right there. So I want to be in one of those buildings, which recently y'all have listed one of them, right? Yep. So think tenant rep, don't think agency, okay? I need 10,000 square feet. What should I budget?
Per square foot?
Per square foot, and then I'll do the math and I'll get the annual.
Mid-50s.
Is that full service or is that full service? That's my janitorial and it's not individually metered 50. So I need to budget for 10,000 square feet about $500,000. Is that right? All right. Now I want you to watch any tenant rep that I would answer the question, they would think about what is the rent that the landlord wants, and that was the way you answered the question, right? And again, that would be the way I would get it no matter what. But it was sort of a trick question because I was specific and said, what should I budget? But you gave me what the landlord wanted. So who are you representing here? Who are you representing? Well, no, you're not, because you told me, my question was, what should I budget? And you told me what the landlord wanted. And I'm giving you a hard time, but I'm trying to make my point. That's the mistake most tenant reps make. They find out where the user wants to go, and they counsel them that what they should be paying is not what they should be actually budgeting, but what the landlord wants. It is the single biggest mistake made by tenant reps, is they're putting tenants into space that they can't afford. They like the space and they like the location, but they're paying what the landlord wants, not in fact what they can budget. Because our first obligation is to think, regardless of the size of the user, think of me as your real estate department. And my job, before I even tell you what the landlord wants, is to tell you what you should budget that does no harm to your P&L. That's where a good tenant rep begins, is to help them negotiate a lease that conforms with their P&L and does no harm. And the reason we don't do that is oftentimes we don't have the tools until now that we can actually advise the user on what they should budget. So I remember Mike talking about this I-RRR thing. That would be maybe something I could use. I'm going to change y'all's life. Let me just tell you. I take the key to the Ferrari and I tell the user in my itinerary presentation that we've done a substantial amount of research on their industry in this city and we want to represent them. But no matter who they hire, and we hope it's us, that they get a budget of what does no harm to their P&L before they start the building tours. You were kind enough to share with us your revenue for the next 5 years, and based upon the research that we've done, your unique I-RRR is 4.2%. So what we've prepared for you is a budget of what you should be paying in base rent. So next year, if we wanted to do no harm to your P&L, you want to be pretty close to $210,000 in base rent. And then we showed a slight increase with your increase, a conservative increase in revenue, which now gives you a budget. So as we solicit building proposals, we will then compare one building proposal to another building proposal, but then we will compare it to the scale that we've created for you, which is this column right here. 99 out of 100 tenant reps are not providing this column to their tenants. They're providing the column of 3 building proposals to them, and so now they're in a vacuum. There's no context. They're comparing building A to B to C, and all 3 of those is what the landlord wants, but we did not start where we're supposed to start. And matter of fact, after 2008, and even before, but particularly after 2008, I know nothing about single family, but what is it? You can't pay more than 28.5% of your gross for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Billy Bob, I don't know which ones they are, but isn't it 28? Who's residential at one time, huh? What is it? So it's what? But it's a percentage. And either you can afford it or not. And now, which is fantastic, you get a letter from a lender that says, you're approved for this amount. Commercial real estate, let's just go look at the space and we'll get your proposal. You're an adult, we assume you know if you can pay for it or not, but they don't. Because no one is giving them context of what, in fact, based upon your industry, in your peer group, and the community in which you do what you do, what is at least a target. We're not giving them a mathematical target that does no harm. They tell us they want to be in an expensive market, and we show it to them, and we negotiate the best deal we can, and sometimes it closes, sometimes it doesn't. Oftentimes the reason it doesn't is their instinct tells them they can't afford the space. They don't know it mathematically. They're just thinking, well, that's a whole lot more than I'm paying right now. So they don't do the deal, but they just wasted your time. This tool right here is a game changer, because you should bring in 5 high hurdles to every assignment that your competition can't cover or can't get across. And one is, no matter who you hire, we hope it's us, please make sure they give you a budget of what does no harm to your P&L before you start building tours. Because then you can take those building proposals, compare them one to the other, and let us negotiate those down, but you're always able to compare them to a scale that we've created for you.